Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about the lab we're doing next class. The lab is going to be looking at photosynthesis and what affects the rate of photosynthesis. And we're going to be using this chemical called DCPIP. And in its normal state, it's this blue color, okay? And so that's what the molecule looks like. When it absorbs hydrogens and electrons, though, it turns a clear color. Okay. And so what you see here is this chloroplast solution. So we have some green chloroplasts plus the DCPIP. So it's this blue substance plus some, basically just some leaf juice that has chloroplasts in it. And so it's this color, and then when we shine light on it, we find that it turns this clear color. Okay? And so if you guys remember in the chloroplast, what happens on the thylakoid is this is where we see photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. So it's right here that water is split, right? The light hits and water splits into 3 components. Remember, the oxygen is released, and then there's the hydrogen and the electrons, okay? Well, that's this hydrogen and that's this electron. Normally, the hydrogen and the electron from water in a chloroplast would end up going to the Calvin cycle, and it would get carried there by NADP. Okay, but DCPIP is a substance that's going to compete with NADP. So remember, NADP would normally attach to the hydrogen and to the electron. And so if DCPIP is there, it's going to grab those instead, and it's going to turn clear. Okay, so the change in color is a really good indication of how much those thylakoids are working to split up water, and it's a good indication of photosynthesis. All right? Okay, so let's talk about the actual experiment. So we're going to get 7 test tubes here, and we're going to put different amounts of this DCPIP, and all of them are going to get the same amount of chloroplasts, okay? So let me change to green so you remember that we're going to have the same amount of chloroplasts. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to take spinach and we're going to crush it up and we're going to release the chloroplasts. And so we're going to fill the test tubes with those chloroplasts, okay? And mind you, take a look, they're heated, okay? So the chloroplasts are going to be green in color, but none of the enzymes are actually going to work, okay? Okay, so what we've done is we've actually denatured the proteins of the photosystem. So they're not really going to be doing much. They're kind of, you can think of them as dead. And so then we're going to put the DCPIP, okay? And so that's blue. So let me switch colors here. Okay, so the first one is going to get 0 drops, so it's going to be kind of clear in color. This one's only going to get 1 drop, so it's going to just be very faint, right? This one's going to get 2 drops. This one's going to get 3 drops, 4 drops, 5 drops, and 6 drops. Okay, so we're going to have this sort of gradient of color here. So this one's going to be the darkest. This one's going to be the lightest. And we haven't actually proved anything. All we've set up is kind of a comparison. So these are kind of our control groups, okay? So this should tell us, basically, if there's no photosynthesis going on, what does it look like when there's only 1 drop of DCPIP in there? Okay, what color is it going to be if there's only 1 drop present? All right? And so we're going to set up this whole thing, and we're going to label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our experiment, okay? We're going to set up some test tubes, and we're going to set up a thing of water, a beaker full of water, and a lamp, okay? So this is going to provide our light source here. The reason why we put this water here is because we want it to absorb the heat, right? We don't want heat to be a factor in our experiment. Okay, so now the only thing reaching these test tubes is going to be light. All right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to get an additional 3 test tubes, okay? So here's our 3 test tubes. We're going to label them A, B, and C. All right, and this time we're going to put 6 drops of DCPIP into both of them and 5 of chloroplasts, okay? Now, let's do the chloroplasts first. Okay, so we're going to put 5 mils of chloroplast solution in each of them. Okay, the only thing is take a look. In letter C, these are heated. Okay, so you can imagine that these heated ones are not going to do photosynthesis very well or at all. Okay, so I will have boiled these ahead of time for you guys. A and B, test tubes A and B, have regular chloroplasts. So these are active chloroplasts in here. Okay, and what I want you guys to do is you're going to put 6 drops of DPIP into all of that. Okay, so we're going to get DPIP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So at first they're all going to look like the same color, but remember, with light exposure, what's going to happen to the blue color? It's going to start to go back to looking more clear. Okay, so although we're starting with 6 drops, 6 drops, 6 drops, a lot of those drops are going to turn back to clear. Okay, so we're going to try to keep track of the color of these throughout the course of the experiment. Okay, now we already know that letter C is going to be heated, which means this is our negative control. This is the one we would expect would be doing no photosynthesis at all. Okay, so that's just to make sure we're doing the experiment right. Okay, now A and B, this is the test that we're going to do. So you and your group mates are going to think of what you can do differently to A versus B. Okay, what can you do to make the conditions for photosynthesis a little bit different between these two? You're going to specify what you're going to do in this area here. You don't have to do that now. You're going to do that when you meet up with your group. You guys are going to decide how you want to test these two differently. All right, so I'm not going to tell you what you could do. You just figure out something, okay? So some factor you could change between test tube A and test tube B. All right, now we're going to wait a little while, and we're going to take note of the starting color. Hopefully these should all be the same. After 5 minutes, you should start to see some clarity, right? This one's probably going to still be very blue. This one's probably still going to be very blue even after 10 minutes because these are heated. All right, but these are unheated, so we might actually start to see some color change here. Now, how are we actually going to quantify this color change? All right, remember, that's when we go back to our initial tubes here, okay? So rather than writing that it kind of turned back to clear, we're going to write down, hey, now it looks like test tube 2, or now it looks like test tube 5, or 7. So these numbers are actually going to be a way to quantify what's going on in this experiment, okay? So what I want you guys to do is read through the whole experiment, get an idea of what's going on, try to think of some factors that you and your group could change between tube A and tube B, okay? So you can be a good contributor to your lab group. All right, I'll see you guys then.